We could go on for hours.
Another time.
Hello and welcome to the James Grantram podcast, Super Soul Model Series. This week we are joined by my old neighbour, Louise Young. Now, Louise is an intuitive healer and soul guide. Louise's journey began in her 20s when she faced a very long, severe battle with ME and chronic fatigue. Through her experience, she learned self-love, deep acceptance, and awakened her connection to spirit. And this strengthened her relationship with herself as well. A spontaneous out-of-body experience came later where she began to be aware of herself as pure consciousness, and this confirmed her path. Today, Louise works with her team in spirit and guiding and empowering clients to heal, to reconnect, and remember who they really are. Welcome to the show, Louise.
Hi, James. Thank you so much for having me. I'm very excited to be here.
It's so funny that we can grow up together when we were, I don't know, well, I was about 5 or 6 or something like that. You were across the road with Jessica and me and my sisters. And here we are years later, and we're talking about something that perhaps we didn't even know about as kids, or at least it was unconscious at the time. But then
Yes,
when we go through our own journey and we go through challenges and suffering and we find our way again, it's so funny that our paths have met and looped again. And so I just wanted to say, isn't it amazing how sometimes without you even knowing, life has always put you in the perfect place and that we're all connected?
absolutely. And I think that's beautiful. Thank you for that, because I often say to my clients as well, we are always in the right place at the right time.
Yeah.
And it's just to trust that path. And I guess it's a case of sort of surrendering and accepting to where we are right now.
Yeah, but often it's strange though, because
Yeah.
anyone listening, we're always going through some sort of challenge. There's always something
Yes.
lurking in the background. But like it's quite unusual to think, oh, we were in the right place, because sometimes it really doesn't feel like you're in the right place. But if zoom back out from our childhood,
Absolutely.
here we are again after I've had my experiences and challenges and
Yes.
you've had your experiences. And here we are trying to share the story that everything's okay, regardless of how things may seem.
Absolutely. Yes.
So,
Absolutely.
would you be kind enough to draw us back to your personal story, right back to the beginning? Because when I introduced you, we talked about you suffered from severe chronic fatigue and ME, and what that path brought to you. How did it all happen, and how did
Yeah.
this healing journey all begin?
So, James, I think probably like yourself and maybe many that are watching this podcast, as a child, I was a very sensitive child. And I always felt that there was more than just this physical body. I had various challenges when I was a child. And you probably know yourself, when I moved to Cobham, I was very badly bullied for a few years. Um, and school was quite difficult for me as well. I had undiagnosed dyslexia as well. So I think all of this led to a feeling of a lack of self-love, a lack of self-worth. And that just compounded as I went into my teens. I had an eating disorder. Then I sort of that led on to a couple of very difficult relationships. And moving forward into my late 20s, I actually I sort of threw everything in, decided that that's enough. I'm going to go backpacking to Australia and New Zealand. And I was not in a good physical state at the time or mental state. And I think looking back, I realized that there was a really severe lack of self-love, of self-esteem, of a complete disconnection to who I was. And I touched on the spiritual side a bit in my early 20s when I'd suffered some panic attacks. But then I'd kind of lost my way again. And like many, it all got rather hedonistic in the 20s. And then I went backpacking and I caught just the most awful virus. And gradually my health went down and down, but still I wasn't listening. I wasn't listening to myself, whether you want to call that listening to my intuition, my higher self, my gut feeling. And I just pushed and pushed through until I basically collapsed. I collapsed. So,
Was this whilst you were in
well,
Australia?
I was collapsing when I was out there. I was still in this great sense of denial. I can cover this up by doing things, by partying, by
Yeah.
drinking. Um, but I knew that there was something very wrong with me. I started developing awful headaches, dizzy spells, weakness, and eventually I did come home after about kind of 5 or 6 months where it literally got to the stage where I thought, I'm now really getting quite concerned about myself.
Yeah.
And then I came home. But it's amazing, James, and I know you'll understand this yourself as many will, how much we can be in self-denial. And I think this is really key. We can be really falling apart and sometimes in a great place of self-sabotage, but not even realizing it. And I think that was very much part of my journey and part of my learning.
It's really interesting because I
Mm.
remember in my case with drinking, I was like, I didn't know what I was doing. That was what my
Yeah.
friends and I did. That was kind of like what the culture was. I didn't know any different. So what happened to you? When did the ME begin and the chronic fatigue?
Well, I came home and I was still in that state of push, push, push. I felt I needed to prove myself. I'd come home, I'd been traveling, I got a really good job in marketing. This was a big career break for me. I was really excited about it. But deep down again, I knew something wasn't right. But I took the job, and that was in the summer of 2000. And it was very, very stressful, but I pushed through. I worked really, really long hours. And eventually my body just began to break down. I think there's no other really way of saying it. I was masking it. So basically people would be saying, oh, do you want to come out for lunchtime and we'll walk, we'll walk into Kingston. That's where it was at the time. And I would say, oh no, I'm going to finish off this work. And what I was actually doing is I was going to the bathroom and lying down
Right.
and like hiding in a cubicle. So
Why is it that you felt you needed to hide?
I suppose, James, it's a fear of being judged, I
Yeah.
suppose. That's a big thing as well. A fear of being judged, of not being understood, of, I suppose, letting the balls drop. I felt I had this great job. I had to hold it together. Otherwise, I would be a failure. My family, my parents would think I was a failure. But interestingly, I think my parents, particularly my mum, she knew that something wasn't right,
Yeah.
and she was quite worried.
So there's the intuition coming through mum. You know,
Yes.
she would,
Yeah.
like I always like to think that the female is the
Mm.
oracle and the man is the
Yes.
safety or the
Yeah.
provider. And I think that intuitively your mum knew,
Yeah.
and intuitively you knew, but you just probably didn't have the tools or knew what to do.
Exactly. I was completely shut down to that. And as things progressed over the next few months, I kind of was started to lose the ability to kind of I would say even walk. It was that serious.
Yeah.
I would work all day and then I would go back home, which was only 10 minutes away. Sometimes I would drive because I was so weak, and then I would just go to bed, and then I would stay in bed, and then I'd get up the next day and go back to work and do the same thing all over again until it got to the point where I thought, I can't do this anymore. I just can't do this. So I said to my boss, do you know, I'm not feeling great. I know I might have a bit of the flu. I'm going to take a long weekend. And I'm going to go back to my parents because I had a flat locally. So I went back to my parents. I went to bed and I basically didn't really get up for 2 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay. And
Yeah.
there it is. And do you know when you were diagnosed? Were you diagnosed
Yeah.
during that time or?
Well, yes. Well, I went to bed, and that really was the beginning of me letting go because I've been holding on for so tight. The adrenaline had been going, my mind had been going, push, push, push. So I let go, and my body just was like, finally, finally, she's listening.
Yeah.
And within those 2 weeks, I went downhill to the point where I couldn't get out of bed, I couldn't feed myself, I couldn't get to the bathroom. I thought I was going to die. I thought if I've gone downhill this much in 2 weeks, the next step is that I'm not going to have the energy to breathe. And this is it. It's game over. This is it. I literally thought I was going to die at that stage.
It's you know, I've got a lot of compassion listening to a story because not a lot of people would understand chronic fatigue or ME. You
Mm,
know, they may hear it, one or two people may have had it. How many people actually have it? Let's say, for instance, in the UK.
I think it was about 250,000 people.
It's
It's a
not, it's a
lot.
lot of people, more people than
Yeah.
we think, right?
It's a lot, and a lot of people don't realize they
Yeah.
have it, or everything is a sort of on a continuum. Everything, so maybe that someone doesn't have it severely, but they have it mildly, which is actually probably even worse. Because in my journey, I have met hundreds and like thousands of people with ME over the years, and many people who have it mildly are still pushing through, trying to hold down a
Yeah.
job, a family. And I think in a way, I'm quite grateful that what happened to me was so spectacularly awful that I was taken seriously and I was taken into hospital, Epsom Hospital, and I was very, very lucky. I got diagnosed by an immunologist who basically said, "Oh, I've seen people like this before. I think you've got ME." I'd known one person before with ME, and for me, I thought, "Oh, well, I've got ME, that's it. You never recover with
Right.
ME." And I was in hospital and yeah.
So thank you for sharing.
Mm,
Um, I guess the next part of your journey is really interesting now because then comes the healing.
yeah.
So, could you talk
Yeah.
us through the healing journey of you going through this experience? Because you
Yeah.
thought to yourself, I'm never going to heal again. But I bet there was a part of you that was
Mm.
saying, that's not true.
Yes. Once I got out of hospital, which was a very grim experience being in hospital, but once I got out, I remember thinking to myself, well, I've always been a spiritual being, and I'm going to use this time now to connect back with that. And I felt quite quickly, I actually felt that it had been a gift. That and
That's
yeah,
magic because we
yeah,
often go through trials
yeah,
and extreme challenges. Sometimes it's death,
yeah.
health. I don't know. I want to understand your mindset about
I,
this.
I honestly think, James, that I think on a very, very deep soul level, obviously I'm a spiritual person. I believe we are, we are souls having a human experience. And I think at that stage, I had a beginning really of an awakening. I knew that this had to happen to me to put me on my path of being a healer, of being a
Right.
healer. And I just felt that at a very, very deep level. And and I'm not saying it was easy. It wasn't easy. There was still, many days of darkness. It was really, certainly for the first year, felt like a huge dark night of the soul. And I got slowly, slightly better. Rebuilding my relationship with my parents, that was really a major part of it, and with myself
Hmm.
because I realized that actually I had actually hated myself. I had no self-love at all. I couldn't look in the mirror, I couldn't look at a photo without thinking I'm worthless. I'm nothing. Um,
And
I'm
that couldn't be further from the truth, right? That couldn't
yes,
be further from the truth. Yet
bless you.
somehow
Yeah,
we get programmed or exposure to life or even our environment might
yeah.
tell us otherwise. And somehow, if we're very
Mm.
sensitive and young, you just accept that that might be true, even though it
Yes,
isn't.
absolutely. And actually, to add a little bit of lightness to this
Yeah,
conversation,
because it is heavy, but I guess that there
yeah,
is a big bounce, and that's where we're getting to. That's where we're
yeah.
alluding to with this
Yeah.
conversation.
And it's really interesting because during that period, I remember you moved home to your parents. So then you were across the road.
Yeah, I
And
did. I
I
started
remember
modeling, and yeah,
you were
and I
very
only
much
moved back
on,
for a little bit. But
yeah,
okay, yeah,
you
carry
were
on, because
very
you,
much on I feel you were very much on your health journey at the time.
yeah,
And I remember you coming over and talking to me about a few kind of health products that you were into at the time.
yeah,
And I just remember thinking, oh, this is really nice to reconnect with James. And he's obviously really into health as well.
Yeah, my journey, to my awakening actually began through health.
Yeah.
And it was first the gym. And then secondly, when I understood that there had to be a mind-body connection, I thought, well, I don't know
Mm.
much about the mind. So let me understand nutrition first
Yes.
before
Yes.
understanding how the
Mm.
mind works and what happens if we're able to still the mind and how that keeps you well.
Mm.
So I probably was around there when I was
Yeah,
across the
well,
road.
which is not dissimilar to where I was, because
Yeah.
even though I was in that place of meditating, and that's very key that I'll come back to in a minute,
Yeah.
I got to the point where I thought, right, well, I've done the whole office marketing thing. That's not me. It's never felt like me. I want to learn about holistic health. So I embarked on what was back in those days, the good old correspondence course,
Okay. I
learning
don't even know
about
that.
learning about anatomy, physiology, nutrition,
Yeah.
bit of counselling. So I'd started to embark on that course. So I was really like, this is what I want to do, and I'm going to use this opportunity to learn. Finally, I have the chance now to learn. And it wasn't easy because I was resting for a lot of the time. A lot of the time I was in a very meditative state, and a lot of the time I wasn't actually really aware of because my circadian rhythm was totally out.
Because you're probably sleeping all day, is that right as well?
Yeah, sleeping a lot and
Okay.
then awake a lot at night. Sometimes I would be almost like I'm not even sure whether this is night or day.
Right.
I was in a very, very lucid state, and I was meditating a lot. And then again, back in those days, which was again around what, 2000 to 2002, it was just a case of you popped on a tape or a CD, you put some ambient music on, and you went off and you meditated. There was none of what we have these days. Um, so that was what I basically did for
Wow.
many, many hours a day.
There's something that is really important that happened to you. It
Yeah.
happened in your bedroom, and you had an out of body experience.
I did. So there I was, feeling very, very unwell. And this was a few years into my journey. And ME is very much about relapses and remissions. And I would step forward a bit and then I would come back. And it was all very frustrating. But this was in a time of a relapse. So I was in bed. I was probably meditating or resting. I can't even remember. But the next thing I knew, I can only describe it as I was an orb of light, just
Okay.
floating around my ceiling. And I was, how I believe, in my soul consciousness. So we've heard many people talk about having astral travel, being in their light bodies, seeing themselves kind of as a body, but being able to kind of walk through walls and that sort of thing. Whereas I was very much this orb shape. But I felt like I was me. I was me, and I was totally fearless, totally peaceful, and I felt totally free. I stayed within my room.
Could
I
you
was
look at the body when you went down?
I didn't, James, and I know we hear about this a lot
Yeah.
about doing that, but I didn't. What I do remember thinking is I remember thinking, oh, I'm going to go and look out my window now. This was a big deal because I was in my bed, not well at the
And even
time.
getting up was a major
Yeah,
issue.
getting up needed assistance from my mother. So I floated over to my windowsill and I remember looking at my things I had on my windowsill, thinking, well, this is nice, looking out at the window, looking across the road, probably seeing your house across the
Yeah,
road.
yeah.
And and thinking, oh, this is really nice. I feel really peaceful. I'm just floating around. Again, all I can say is I felt peace, total freedom. And but the next thing I knew, I was back in my body again.
That is an amazing experience.
Yeah.
But my question
Ah.
that is that strikes me is how much of a big deal was that to you given that you were bedbound?
Well, the incredible thing is, James, is that I don't think I really properly connected to that, having that experience until quite a few years later.
Wow, how come?
I know it seems totally bizarre to me because now I look back and I think that was a gift. That was a gift to me to say I'm on the path and
Yeah,
um and a gift to help me understand the nature of us as being soul beings.
yeah,
But
that we're
I
bigger
I
than our body.
yeah,
There's more to us.
completely.
Yeah,
And I was obviously in this great state of fear. I was fearful of being in my body. My body had let me down,
yeah,
or perhaps I had let down my body.
yeah.
So that as well.
That's a very interesting way to look at it.
Yes.
I'm always thinking of the people listening or people watching.
Mm,
You know, they may not understand your individual experience,
mm.
but if you're not able to do something, you're really physically incapacitated, like you were
Yeah,
for many years.
yeah.
It's a big deal to feel peace.
Yes, it is. And I think
Yeah.
that's where the meditation came in because I would be in my mind a lot. And that was what would give me peace. When I say in my mind, I would be imagining in the meditation that I was dancing, I was walking on the beach, which I loved. I was desperately missing being on a beach.
Yeah.
And little did I know that I was waking up what you call your psychic senses. So I was waking up my, you want to call it pineal gland, third eye, intuition, through years and years of these imaginative guided meditations where I was guiding myself. And that was my place of peace. Because when I was doing that, I didn't have to connect with the profound fatigue and pain. I was in a lot of physical pain as well.
It's funny that pain causes us to become so present, doesn't it?
Yes.
And
Yeah. Yeah.
and I think that this blends quite nicely into the next part of your story, that you needed to begin to listen. And
Yes.
then as you began to listen, what was happening
Yeah.
next in Louise's experience?
Well, I gradually began to improve my health and start to do a bit more in life, just go out a little bit more. At first, it was in a wheelchair, a walking stick as well, which again, I felt very, I don't know, I think at first it felt quite embarrassing. There I was in my early 30s. I was
You're walking with a
walking
walking
with
stick.
a
Yeah, yeah,
walking stick
yeah.
and where we lived was quite hilly as well. So,
Mm,
but it was all sort of part of me beginning to get a little bit physically stronger.
yeah.
So I began to improve, but again, it was relapses and remissions. But my learning was not to go back to be the hedonistic and person that I was who didn't love myself. And every time I felt that I was slipping back into being that person, I felt that my health would get worse. It was like I
Interesting.
was put back on the path every time, put back on the path, put back on the path. And this has been the journey really for about the last 25 years that I feel like if I'm not being true to myself, if I'm not listening to myself, being kind to myself, something happens to put me back on that path again.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that. It's almost as
Been
saying, no,
there.
you're not having that, get back on the path.
Yes,
In
yes.
truth, it's really interesting that everybody's on their own path and you
Yeah,
can't really go wrong. And if you do, you get put back on the path,
yeah,
whatever's going on in your life.
yeah.
And I'm fascinated about what happens to you next because as you went on your path, you began listening to your guides.
Absolutely. So really to cut a long story short, I met a wonderful man who I'm still with. We're married.
Congratulations.
Thank you. We have a home together, and I got to the point where I was well enough to start to work. And of course, what I wanted to do was to set up a healing practice that was to definitely help to help other people with what I had learned as well.
And can I just
Yeah.
like,
Mm,
I'm just fascinated that
mm,
that is a beautiful transmutation of everything that you've gone through for such a long
mm.
period of time. Just going, what if what I've learned along the way could help other people?
Yeah,
That's amazing.
It feels such a gift to be
Yeah.
able to do what I do. It
Mm.
really does. And I feel so strongly that this is what I was meant to do in this lifetime. And I had to go through what I went through to get to where I am now. Because
Yeah.
when I work with clients, um, I hear their stories and I can show that compassion and that empathy because I know what it's like to be in a very dark place for a
Mm.
long time. So I trained in various holistic therapies and
Yeah.
nutrition, and I started off in that place with my practice. But then I was beginning to feel like there's more to this. I feel like I want to learn a bit more about energy, about healing, and I did various healing modalities, and that was really what I think began to hugely awaken me. And like yourself, I had been on a mission to read every single spiritual book I get my hands onto. I know we both read Conversations with God, didn't
Yeah.
we?
That was
Early
actually the
on
first
in,
book my best
yes.
friend who's no longer with us anymore, but I got that book in the year 2000.
Mm.
And yeah, I devoured that book in one day and then
Yeah.
followed a couple of other thousand books, but
Yes.
business as well as
Oh,
spirituality and health, you know.
yes. I think as well that was the first series of books I really
Yeah.
started with as well. And then again, I mean, books and books and books and just almost like an insatiable appetite, like yourself. I just wanted to know more. I wanted to know more. And I'd been doing yoga for a long time. I had touched on a little bit of going to yoga retreats and doing meditation on the retreats. So I'd already been on that path for quite a long
Yeah.
time. So I started the healing, and it was a case of coming into this place of trust. So I started to build up a bit of a client base. And I remember one day I was working with somebody and I placed my hands around her head and I just was like, whoa, 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 whoa. And I started to feel energy. And I
Okay.
remember that clearly. That was the first time I started to feel energy. So, and I feel energy now in very different ways with different people.
Yeah.
And then that moved on to starting to hear my main guide who was working with me. So again, a very quite,
What an unusual path, right? From chronic
yes,
fatigue, ME, meditation, dabbling, and out of body experience, and just going, look, what's up with me? To going, I really want to transmute this into something good. And then,
yes,
boom, another upgrade. I mean, from
yes.
somebody who used to live across the road from me, this is not a usual path. But then again, I'd love to say this none of us has a usual path. We don't know what's going to happen.
Exactly, exactly. So there I was doing the healing, and I became aware that there was a voice. It was
Yeah.
a man's voice on my right hand side, and through my peripheral vision, I could see a man, an elderly man in a white coat. He looked like a doctor. Now, when I say my peripheral vision, this was in my third eye. So when
Okay.
I heal, I'm mostly healing with my eyes shut. So I'm in the very deep theta state. And for your audience who are wondering, well, how on earth do you get to that state? It's practice, 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 practice.
Developing a muscle like anything,
It
right?
is. It's practice, practice. So I'd sat in meditation for many years, but also with the healing, it was coming into that breath,
Yeah.
coming into that completely present moment. Um, and this went on, James, for about 6 months. I was hearing this man's voice, and eventually I thought, I really need to know more about what's going on because this man was training me. He was saying, go here, touch the feet, hold over the heart, hold the head, feel the energy. What can you feel? Lift that away, work with color. He was instructing me. And eventually I was very, very lucky. An incredible soul medium came into my life. Again, no luck, that it was absolutely
Yeah.
meant to be. And I went to see her and I said, this is what's been going on. And she said, before I even said it, she said, you're working with a doctor guide. I can see him. And I was like, that's literally about what I was going to say.
Isn't it fascinating that
Yeah.
even though we can't see things with our physical eyes,
Yeah.
there are things that we can feel or pick up? And if you've ever done any plant medicine, you will see visuals. Not that I've done them, but this is what I hear from a lot of people. I don't necessarily have seen anything, but I feel things around me. And
Mm.
that's a really beautiful experience in my case, because it's always something benevolent that I feel around me. That's usually because I'm in a good
Beautiful.
vibe. But if you're not in a good vibe, you could get the
Yes.
heebie-jeebies. But, I always try and discipline myself to give myself the best possible start to be in a good vibe. That's why I call it the green lights. You see more green lights in life. So in your experience, you were getting the green lights of keep doing this healing work. This could help a lot of people. And you were guided to the lady, the soul medium who
Yes.
told you about the doctor. So what
Yes.
happened next?
Yeah. Well, she basically gave me a lot of confidence. She said, I see you're working with this doctor guide. And this was all rather funny because during my time of being unwell, I'd actually done a health science and biology degree with the Open Uni. And I thought I was going to end up doing something like nursing. So I had the joke that always makes me laugh is I thought I would be working with doctors in human form. I didn't realize I'd be working with doctor in spirit.
It's so funny, isn't it? And
Yeah.
if you believe in
Yeah.
angels, which I do
Yes.
because my life is a miracle, there's no way I should have got out of that car accident.
Mm.
What I'm fascinated with is if you can't see it, it doesn't mean it's not there.
Yes.
And I believe we all have guardian angels and we all have guides. But to get to that feeling or get to that knowing within you is your own journey. And
Yes.
and it's
Yeah.
not forced upon you. It just suddenly happens like a door opens and suddenly you
Yes.
open.
And that's what it felt like, James. It felt
Yeah.
like finally I was opening up and subsequently as the years have gone on, and it's been quite a few years now I've been doing the healing, that I've other guides have come in, angels have come in, ascended masters. I feel Yeshua or Jesus around me very
Yeah.
much. And as I began to open up to the healing, at the beginning, I would always hear, you never heal alone. It was like a
Mm.
mantra that started. I would open up and it would come through, you never heal alone. And it was my team of guides. And we all have this. I'm not special or different in any way. We all have our guides and our angels around us. And they were letting me know that I'm not alone, that they were here.
And isn't
Help.
it strange though, because when we go through dark moments or the dark
Yeah.
night of the soul or very challenging times, we do feel alone. We feel
Yes.
awfully alone, and I think that's a human condition when we go through really tough moments. I think, but there's something beautiful to know as the energy sort of dissipates a little bit, the heaviness dissipates, the
Mm.
light returns. It's a bit like the sunrise happens again,
Yes.
and
Yeah.
and I think any which way you get to feel better or even a little bit lighter after difficult times, I think is a beautiful thing. I know there's another part of your work that you haven't talked about, which is the past life therapy.
Yes. So
So
that's
how does that
another.
sort of fit in with what you're
Yes.
doing? Because your your story is like a mishmash of a spiritual awakening and healing at the same time.
Yes.
And to make it relatable, how does this all connect? With the past life stuff as well.
So again, what would happen is I would place my hands sort of around in the kind of soul field, and again, I was given a lot of very great mentoring around this from my soul medium, my guide, spiritual teacher, and what was happening is I was placing my hands around, and I would start to have these visualizations of almost like an image, like a story, like a video playing in my mind. And I realized that I was connecting with people's past lives and I was being shown
Wait, say
past
say that say
lives.
that again. So you're putting your hands
So
on
I'm
someone's.
placing, so instead of placing the hands on the body, on the physical field, I
Okay.
was then moved, the healing sort of began to evolve and move. Again, I'm being guided, I'm being told by my team clairaudiently,
Okay.
place your hands above. And as I was placing my hands above, I'm connecting with the outer soul field. So we are a big energy being,
Sure.
obviously, dense energy moving out. And within that, I would be picking up these images. And say, like, for instance, a client would come and they would say, I have an enormous fear of being attacked or something. I have enormous fear of being strangled.
Right.
And I would then I place my hands around that area, and I would be shown a past life where perhaps they were attacked or strangled or hung. And sometimes they wouldn't even have to tell me that story.
Yeah.
I would just pick it up and then we'd discuss it afterwards, and they'd say, "Oh, that's really weird because I've really felt like I've always had loads of sore throats,
Sure.
or I've had a real problem kind of speaking my truth, opening up." So again, I went through this, not so much now, but I went through this phase of working with the client and doing a type of guided past life regression where we're releasing that energy. So
So
therefore,
sometimes we can feel stuck in life and we're thinking, how on
yes,
earth did we get stuck? And it might be
yes,
ancestral, or it might be from the
yes.
past, or it
Yeah,
might
so it
be.
may not be come from this life, but it can
Yeah.
come from other lives and other people who are in our life now that are part of our soul group. So I know we've gone quite off on
Yeah.
one here, but it's all part of the evolvement of what happened.
So given what you know, given your experience,
Mm.
given the soul guidance that you have and the healing that you offer other people, what have you picked out from the entire journey that you've had of healing that is essential for us as human beings, whether we're aware of this material or not? What do you think is the most important that Louise has understood throughout this?
That's a very good question, James. I would say it's about learning to love ourselves,
Yeah. And how
learning
did you do
to
it when you were feeling the exact opposite? How did you learn to love yourself?
I think it was starting to listen to my body,
Yeah.
really starting to listen. And when I began to listen to my body, I realized I was so much more than just that busy mind, that mind of saying, I'm not good enough, I need to do more, I need to, be more, achieve more. That worry of being judged, and realize that actually I was starting to connect in with my intuition, with my love, with my heart, with my higher self. And I say all that because, it can be however someone feels it. I personally now connect to my higher self. I have conversations with my higher self. For others, it may be connecting with their heart. But there are other practical things like having boundaries.
Yeah. Did you not feel as though you had boundaries
Oh,
previously?
completely. No, no, no,
Were you just a
absolutely.
yes person the whole time?
Yeah, overly people pleasing, feeling, letting myself feel like I'm being judged, perhaps even
Yeah.
if I wasn't being judged. So acceptance of who I was, and sort of surrendering
Mm.
into that being, this is who I am, and this is my journey, and this is where I am. And as I say, letting go of that push, of
Yeah.
pushing myself.
I love the acceptance. That's important
Yeah,
to accept yourself. There's
yeah.
something beautiful as we sort of transition towards the end of this beautiful conversation, Louise, which is your little time in Wisley. I caught a little
Oh,
video of you, I think it was this year or last year, I
yeah.
can't remember. And it was you walking around this beautiful natural garden
Mm.
in Surrey. And I saw such a joy beaming through your eyes, which
Oh,
is very rare. And for me, when I research this podcast, I'm always looking for people with authenticity to share their story. And I feel energy and I see it. And on
mm.
that video, I was like, this is why I've got to call Louise now after all this
Oh,
time.
oh.
It's been a very long time, although my family don't live there anymore. Fascinated to see that light in your eyes after all this challenge that you'd been
Oh,
through. But this challenge was
thank
also what I
you.
like to call a setup
Yeah,
for what you're
yes.
doing now, right?
Yeah.
And tell us a little bit about that in Wisley, because this was really beautiful for the audience to hear.
This going to Wisley, which is a beautiful part of the RHS beautiful gardens, which I'm very lucky to live close by. I felt that this. we spend so much time in our life doing things, don't we? We have our long to-do lists, etc., etc.
Yeah.
But that day, the sun was out, and I thought, I'm going to take myself off on my own as an act of self-love, and I'm going to go to Wisley by myself and have a lovely walk in the sunshine amongst the flowers. And it was a place that I went a lot as a child. I've got very fond memories going there with my grandparents. And I spent many years actually going to Wisley in a wheelchair and being wheeled round. And as I walked round, I suddenly thought, wow, I'm here walking around. I've driven here. I'm walking on my legs. They're working. I feel free. I feel light. And I felt so much gratitude, so much gratitude that I just wanted to do that little video that I
You
did.
did that video, but in that video, you told us,
Yes.
and hey, I
Yeah.
was once not able to do this, and now
Yeah.
the doctor
Yeah.
said I couldn't walk again, and I'm walking again, and I
Yes.
drove myself here, and I'm smelling the flowers. This for
Yes.
me was,
Yeah.
most people may take it for granted, but
Exactly, and I think that's such a true thing to say. There's so much that we can take for granted, and just to be able to stop here and there and have that sense of gratitude, no matter what it is, even if it's just spending a minute sitting down, having a nice cup of tea somewhere, or hearing a bird song,
yeah.
just these little moments where we can come into that sense of gratitude, which is definitely what I had. And I'm not making out I'm somebody that's floating around every day in that sense of gratitude, because I'm not. I've got a busy business, I run a home, etc. But I'm also very mindful as well that I am so grateful. I'm grateful for what has happened to me, even though it was very hard. And I'm grateful for being able to have little joyous moments, to be
And
free.
isn't that beautiful, right? What
Yeah.
would you say is the best takeaway from your entire experience for people, given what you've been through?
Wow. I suppose it's a sense of, if someone says to you, you can't, you won't, that's impossible, don't believe it.
Yeah.
Be your own guide. Be
Hmm.
your own guide, I think. And that's something very much I say to my clients as well. We get told that we have to do certain things in life, but actually, when we really learn to be in our own sovereignty and learn to build up our own self-empowerment and connect again with our heart, this is when we can really start living as our own guides and living in love for ourselves, for others.
Beautiful. And I know you do a lot of private work with clients. What's the name of your website so we can share it with people?
So I'm louiseyounghealing.co.uk.
And I'll have all the links here for you.
Thank you, James.
He's
Thank you.
my old favourite neighbour. Thank you
Ah,
so much indeed for joining this show. I really appreciate it.
thank you, James, for letting me share a bit of my story. And thank you to you for all the amazing work you do and by sharing your light with the world
Oh,
and all the people that you have on. And I've looked a lot at your amazing podcast as well. And yeah, you're sharing, giving those people an opportunity to share their light as well. So thank you.
well, we're all in it together, aren't we?
We certainly are.
So Louise Young is this week's super soul model. Thank you, Louise.
Oh, thank you, James.